Okay, well, good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate you being here. We've got several items to cover today, but we do have a special guest speaker, Nancy from Klein, and Griffin. Nancy has actually been a regular on our calls and has answered some questions regarding employment law. Been a great resource for us, but asked her to come on today as we all start to look at the reopening of Michigan's economy. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. You might have seen the governor and the new Economic Recovery Council announced yesterday the My Safe Start plan, which will reopen the economy. The issue of employment and rehiring and all that stuff related to workers is going to be more and more critical to take a look at now. So, as I said, Nancy's been a great resource on our calls before, and she's got some great information to share. And I also emailed out to everybody this morning some documentation that Nancy provided that'll be helpful, I think, for the call today and going forward. So with that, I want to thank Nancy for joining us, and I will turn the floor over to her. Nancy?
Thank you, Justin. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. So again, my name is Nancy Shiawassee. I'm an attorney at Klein, & Griffin in Flint. Klein, & Griffin is a full-service law firm, and I specialize in employment law. I have, as Justin said, participated in several of these calls, which I have found to be a very valuable resource, and I'm happy and honored to be asked to speak with you today regarding some key considerations for getting back to work. I know there are several businesses who have been either shut down or in minimal operations given the various executive orders, and we are all ready to formulate a plan as to how we can start getting back to work. So the one thing that I think we all understand, but I have to state, is the rules keep changing. So with every executive order and each federal mandate, there have been little tweaks to the law. So it's important that we stay up to date, which is why I'm on the call today, to make sure that everyone has a good understanding, at least as of today, what we need to do to open our businesses and to stay in compliance with the law. So on April 24th, last week, Governor Whitmer signed Executive Order 2020-59, and that set forth some rules for businesses who are either going to be open to the public or are open to the public right now. And I encourage everyone to take a look and read through that order, but specifically, the rules right now are that if you are going to be open to the public for business, you have to adopt mitigation measures recommended by the CDC. That means that you have to have policies in place to prevent workers with COVID-19 symptoms from coming in and infecting anyone who is a potential patron of your business, and to limit contact with people who have been COVID-19 positive. It's recommended that you have a COVID-19 preparedness response plan that's consistent with the CDC and OSHA guidelines. There are guidelines posted on the CDC and OSHA websites that everyone can download for free, and that's a great resource for all businesses to have. And then you're going to have to implement various policies. Everybody is aware now of the social distancing and keeping 6 feet apart from one another, but there are some other policy considerations when you're going to be opening your businesses back up and as the executive orders allow businesses to get back to work. So let's talk about what kind of policies we need to think about having to bring employees back into the workplace. The first thing is everyone is going to need to understand that normal no longer exists. So there's going to be a new normal. In order to communicate to the employees what this new normal is, there is going to have to be an update to many employment practices and procedures, and there has to be a clear and direct communication to the employees as to what those expectations are. So I believe everyone should look at their work policies. I recommend a flexible work policy. It's going to make sense for at least a short while for employees to continue to work from home if possible, while other employees are brought back. Employers should be prepared to explain in advance which employees and which job classifications or job titles are going to be permitted to telework or work remotely, and why other employees need to be in the building. Another consideration is flexible work hours. It may make sense for employees to come back in shifts instead of everyone being back in the building all at the same time. There's going to be a need to increase space between employees and customers because social distancing is right now a government mandate. Another consideration is flexible meetings. We've all been participating in virtual meetings, telephone conferences, but be aware that your conference facilities may have new capacity limits so that there can be enough space for proper social distancing. Employers should look at their flexible leave policies. Any employee who has a fever, cough, or shortness of breath, which are the main symptoms of COVID-19, should be encouraged to stay home. And in compliance with the CDC guidelines, if an employee has those COVID-19 symptoms, they should not be permitted to come into work. I would recommend that you clearly communicate the social distancing policies to the employees so that they understand even when back in work, they need to limit or minimize the face-to-face contact to the extent possible. There's been a lot of talk in the news about medical exams and record keeping. That is something that's going to need to happen for the time being. The best way to do that is with a touchless thermometer, but a specific policy should be implemented so that the same procedure is taking place for each employee. Businesses should have a individual or a group of individuals that are specifically designated to do these medical record keeping tasks. Those records that are kept, to the extent you do keep a paper record, cannot be kept in the person's employee file. There needs to be a separate medical file. If you have medical files already as part of your document keeping policy, those medical records can go within that medical file that's already existing. You do not have to create a second or separate medical file. And then procedures with how people are to report to work, a cleaning and disinfecting policy. So how to keep the office clean and to minimize the spread of COVID-19. Are all policies and procedures that need to be considered coming back to work. Right now, under Executive Order 2020-59, employers must provide a non-medical grade face mask to all employees who are back in the workplace. Now, that is the minimum. You also may want to consider things like gloves, face shields, and it's going to be industry and business specific as to what is necessary, but personal protective equipment is very important, okay? And then the next thing I want to talk about are some legal issues to consider. So there are many laws that employers must abide by in order to conduct business under state and federal law. The first thing that we need to talk about is the ADA and Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act compliance. Those are the discrimination statutes. So we can't discriminate against any employee because of a protected status. If there's a request for an accommodation, that has to be considered and reasonable accommodations must be made. The EEOC and the Department of Labor have put out guidance that say that employers may administer COVID-19 tests designed to detect the presence of COVID-19 before allowing employees to enter the workplace without running afoul of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So that means that while generally an employer cannot take medical information from an employee unless that's reasonably necessary for the performance of the employee's work, right now, because of this pandemic, you can have those medical tests. OSHA is another big consideration. Employees have a legal right to a workplace that is free from a known safety or health hazard, and employers, need to take preventative action so that employees are in a safe work environment. And the way we can do that is by providing masks, the ability to maintain social distancing, and observing other safety procedures and precautions as recommended by the CDC. The new law, and there's been quite a bit of talk about this, is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is the new law that was passed by the federal government that provides many protections to employees, including the emergency family medical leave, emergency paid sick leave, and other benefits to employees. So the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, there's been quite a bit of discussion about it, and I have prepared some memos that Justin shared with everyone about what that is. So it applies to employers with less than 500 employees and public agencies, and it requires 80 hours of paid sick leave to full-time employees if they're unable to work because of quarantine or isolation, or caring for someone who is in quarantine or isolation, have children in schools that have been closed, or are experiencing symptoms themselves. Part-time employees are also provided protection, and the leave that they receive is what they're typically paid over a 2-week period. Now, an employee to receive these types of benefits must have been on payroll for at least 30 days. It does not apply to independent contractors, and there are some exceptions. Small businesses with less than 50 employees may be exempt if providing benefits under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act would jeopardize the viability of their business. It's expected that the Department of Labor is going to issue further guidance, but they have not done so yet. Now, also, the Family First Coronavirus Response Act benefits does not apply to employees who have been furloughed or laid off because the work site is closed. With employees coming back to work, many employees who have been laid off or furloughed have not taken emergency paid sick leave or emergency FMLA because they've been home. However, as employees return to work, especially employees with small children may now seek to take extended FMLA benefits because they have children who are no longer in school because of the shutdown of schools. So that's something that employers should anticipate seeing a spike in those types of requests. Under the Family First Coronavirus Response Act, extended family medical leave is now up to an additional 10 weeks of paid expanded family medical leave at 2/3 the employee's regular rate of pay when the employee has been employed for at least 30 days and is unable to work due to a bona fide need for leave to care for a child whose school or child care provider is closed or unavailable due to COVID-19. The first 10 days of the extended family medical leave are unpaid, but the employee can use their sick time or use emergency paid sick leave for the first 10 days of that time. After 10 days, the emergency family medical leave kicks in and the employee is paid at that 2/3 of the regular rate of pay, which is capped at $200 a day and $10,000 in the aggregate. Part-time employees are prorated. Employers are entitled to a tax credit equal to 100% of the qualified paid family medical leave time for wages paid by the employer. And I will direct everyone to the IRS Circular 2020-57 regarding that. The paid sick leave that I mentioned is also under the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. One of the memos that Justin has shared with you is a one-page document called Understanding Application of Benefits Available Pursuant to the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. That one-page document has many scenarios where an employee may question whether they're entitled to their earned sick leave, emergency family medical leave, emergency paid sick leave, or unemployment. I have not addressed unemployment yet. I know that has been addressed on several calls, so I'm not going to get into that extensively today. However, one question that I have received many times is about employees who refuse to come to work or say that they would prefer not to come to work because of fear of exposure to the virus. I want to be clear, based on my reading of the law, an employee who refuses to come to work when there is work available, so they've been called back to work or put on the schedule, if someone refuses to work out of fear for exposure to the virus, they would not be entitled to unemployment benefits. The same applies to an employee who says that they would be better off financially by making additional money or more money than they normally would have made with that $600 of federal aid. If there is work available and the employee refuses to work due to fear of the virus, that will not be, based on my reading of the law, an appropriate reason to collect unemployment. And if the unemployment goes through and does audits, right now they're overwhelmed, but it is likely that they will at some point start to review these claims. If someone is providing untruthful or false information to the unemployment insurance agency, they can be subject to fraud actions for intentionally misrepresenting the facts regarding the reason that they're claiming unemployment benefits. So as an employer, I caution everyone to go through the paperwork, even though there are so many employees claiming unemployment benefits now, and make sure that the information provided by the employees is accurate. If you see something that's not accurate, you need to respond to the unemployment insurance agency and provide them the information that you believe is untruthful or not accurate, and provide them what evidence you have to show what the truthful or accurate information is. Another thing, these executive orders have provided certain protections to employees, specifically Executive Order 2020-36, that prohibits retaliation against employees who stay home and stay safe pursuant to the executive orders about staying home and staying safe. So Executive Order 36 says that an employer cannot discharge, discipline, or retaliate against an employee who stays home pursuant to Executive Order 2020-36. And what I think that the key consideration in that is if someone is staying home because they are sick with COVID-19 or symptomatic with COVID-19, we want to prevent the further spread of this virus so that those people aren't discharged because they've become sick. And employees are to be treated as if they were on a medical leave under the Paid Medical Leave Act in that circumstance. There's also been a lot of questions about HIPAA. HIPAA has to do with medical privacy rules, but those privacy protections are extended only to entities like health plans, health clearinghouses, and medical providers and their business associates. So if an employee notifies you as an employer that they've tested positive for COVID-19, that information is not subject to HIPAA. However, if you have learned about a employee's COVID-19 or any other medical condition based on information from a health plan that you provide, that information would be subject to HIPAA. It's a best practice to not discuss an employee's health condition with other employees. So what happens if an employee says, you know what, I've tested COVID-19 positive, or when you're doing these medical testing or temperature checks, you find out that an employee is COVID-19 positive. The best course of action there is first to send that employee home. Don't make a big deal out of it. Have it done discreetly, ask them to leave. But then as an employer, you also are going to want to inform your employees who have had contact with that person who is either COVID-19 positive or suspected to be COVID-19 positive, that they have had interaction with another employee who may have COVID-19 positive tests or COVID-19 symptoms. Don't identify that employee by name unless absolutely necessary. All you need to do is tell them that they may have been exposed and that they're going to want to keep their eye out for symptoms and or have a COVID-19 test. All right. And then the last thing, workers' compensation. I've had a lot of questions about workers' compensation. Right now, under the emergency rules by the Workers' Disability Compensation Agency, first responder employees are eligible for workers' compensation if they suffer a personal injury arising out of the course of their employment. So if they contract COVID-19 because they're working in a hospital facility or as an emergency responder, and it's likely that they've received that injury as a result of work, that may be eligible for a workers' compensation claim. However, your general employees in most businesses, the acquisition of COVID-19 is not going to be something that falls under workers' compensation right now. However, this is something that was expected to be litigated, and it has been litigated. So I'm aware of a lawsuit right now, not in Michigan. This is a lawsuit in Illinois, but an employee who was a worker at a Walmart store in Cook County, Illinois, has filed a wrongful death action against their employer. That employee, a state, has now filed a lawsuit alleging that this employee was exposed to and contracted COVID-19 while at work at a Walmart store, and that employee ended up dying of the COVID-19 virus, or because of that. The allegations made in that lawsuit, and it's a lawsuit directly against the employer, alleges that the employer failed to clean and sterilize the store, failed to implement social distancing, failed to provide proper protective equipment such as gloves and masks, failed to warn other employees that this employee was experiencing symptoms, failed to follow CDC guidelines, and subjected the employees to conditions where it was reasonably likely that the employees would become sick with the COVID-19 virus. So that's a lawsuit that I'm going to continue to monitor, and I'm happy to provide updates as that case is litigated. But I expect to see many other lawsuits like this come up. And it's something to be aware of, that as an employer, you may have a liability if these types of actions are allowed to proceed. Right now, it's too early to say exactly what the courts will say with these types of lawsuits, but wrongful death actions are being filed. So that's just a consideration and a reason why these policies and procedures are so very, very important. I know I spoke a little bit longer than Justin wanted me to, but there's a lot of information. I guess at this time, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer those questions. And I will just put out there, if we don't have time for me to answer your question today, you can contact me. Justin sent out an email that has my email address, and I can give you my firm's phone number. Is area code 810-232-3141. And if you have specific fact-specific questions for me, I would ask you call me at the office, and we can discuss that rather than an open communication over a conference call. But with that, I'll open it up to questions if Justin wants to take over.
Yeah, Nancy, thank you. Wow, that was a lot of great information. And yes, I would say if you have individual questions on your own company situation, please do follow up with a call or email to Nancy. But if you do have any, I guess, more general questions that would be good for the benefit of the entire group, let's jump in and do those questions right now. So if you do have something for Nancy right now, hit *6 on your phone and please ask.
Hello.
Oh, did I hear somebody?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes. In regard to unemployment situation, what if the employee has a special reason for being afraid of the COVID virus and going back to work, like if she is pregnant or some other circumstance?
Okay, that's a great question. So under the executive orders regarding unemployment, Governor Whitmer has said that employees who generally would not be able to qualify for unemployment benefits, but who are separated from their job because of certain circumstances, including being immunocompromised, and I believe pregnancy falls under that category, that they may be eligible for unemployment benefits. So there are specific reasons. If you're immunocompromised, but that involves a separation. So either that employee has been laid off, which is something that as an employer you can determine, okay, I can lay this employee off with the expected return to work date sometime in the future, or I'm going to have to separate employment with this employee because they are not able to work and I need people to be able to fill this position. So from an employment standpoint, you may have to terminate that employee. The employee would then likely be eligible for unemployment benefits. And when this is over, that employee may be eligible to reapply or eligible for rehire in the future. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we are a contracting and service company, and we have clients that are both essential, critical, and non-essential. So needless to say, we've had several employees that have been home on unemployment. We're getting quite a few of our essential clients calling us, needing our services and needing us to come to their sites to do work. We've tried to call some of our employees, and some of our employees are just basically saying that, I don't feel like it. I don't feel safe. And when I watched Governor Whitmer's address yesterday, if I'm an employee and I listen to her address, it almost seems like they're in the right, and the employer cannot retribute against those employees for just not wanting to come to work. And that's the way that I took that conversation that she had said. So how do we, I guess, not act like bullies to our employees that we're forcing them to come to work, but at the same time, not allowing them to bully us to say that they just don't want to come to work because they don't feel safe?
It's a hard and difficult position that the governor has put a lot of small businesses in. If the employee falls under one of the reasons, immunocompromisation, lack of child care, and the other reasons enumerated in the executive order regarding the receipt of unemployment benefits, then it is a difficult call. You certainly have the option to hire workers to take the place of anyone who's refusing to work. Now, I understand that is an easy thing to say and a difficult thing to do because so many people are afraid to work right now and to come in, especially if it's a job where there is a lot of interaction with other people. But there's certainly, if there's work available, the employee needs to come into work. And you certainly can put them on an indefinite layoff, or let them know that they're going to have to be replaced. How many employees do you have in your business?
We're probably around 70. We're construction industry, so it fluctuates, but around 70.
Okay. For small businesses, and 70 falls outside of that, usually small businesses 50 or less have exemptions to a lot of the various rules in the state of Michigan, because in order to keep up necessary operations of business, you have to be able to have your essential employees perform their job. So in your industry, I would recommend that you post and hire those who are willing to work. But right now, follow the unemployment filings of those employees and make sure that the employees are providing truthful information. Make sure that they say that work's available and they're collecting unemployment for a reason of fear of coming back. I don't believe those employees will be entitled to unemployment, and that will motivate them to come back quickly.
Okay, you mentioned childcare. So as we're calling these employees back, and say we have an employee that says, I've got kids at home and I've got to take care of my kids because of the stay-at-home order. They don't have a sitter. So how do we, how do we get proof, or how do we know that that's truly in fact the case?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, right now, child care facilities for essential workers are available. And in most communities, I know Justin has had information passed out with the group about child care options in Shiawassee County. So as an employer, you can provide that information to the employees and say, hey, look, if child care is an issue, here are some child care facilities that we know to be open right now for workers who are essential workers. But what did that employee do during the summertime when there wasn't school? So the employee is going to have to at some point make a decision about, are they going to be an employee or are they going to be staying home? And if they're going to stay at home, that may have some economic impact for them. Are they willing to risk their job for that? Because you have to be able to conduct your business.
Right. No, I appreciate that.
You can't force employees to come to work. There's no way to do that. Michigan is an at-will employment state, which means employees can leave their employment at any time, and employers can separate the employment so long as it's not an unlawful or retaliatory reason that's protected by law. So in the case of someone who has the, if they're immunocompromised, if they have a legitimate child care issue, it's going to be impossible to know for sure, is there a babysitter available? How old are the children? Are you staying home to take care of your 17-year-old who can be home by themselves? But I would have a conversation with the employee about what is the true problem, and then what did the employee do, for example, in the summertime when school was out previously, and why isn't that an option now?
Right. Okay. You answered my questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments or questions from the group for Nancy?
Yeah, I've got one, Justin, if I could. Dennis Wheeler, HR Wheeler.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering if maybe Nancy could give us some advice on writing these disinfect policies that we're wanting to put in place, as well as a COVID policy itself.
Sure. Well, Klein and Griffin can certainly help with those policies. If you're going to write the policy yourself, I would take a look at the OSHA and CDC websites. They have provided some guidance regarding those policies, but you're going to need to use, disinfecting and wipe downs of anything where employees and patrons are coming in contact on a fairly regular basis. But that's something that my firm, if you want to contact me directly, can help you with. Or, there are some templates available on a Google search. I would recommend that you contact an attorney just to review the policy if you write it yourself, or contact someone to help you write it.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Good information. Good questions. Any other comments or questions for Nancy? Okay, well, Nancy, I'm sure several of the folks on the phone may have individual items that they want to get back with you on. I did send them your email with all that good information, but can you give the folks your phone number one more time?
Sure. That is area code 810-232-3141.
Okay. Wow. Well, great stuff. Thank you, Nancy, for coming on today. Very much appreciate you doing this. If you have other updates in the future that you want to share, just let me know, and we'll get you on a future program. So,
awesome. Thank you, Justin.
Yep, thank you. With that, I know we're getting a little shorter on time. Just a couple other things I wanted to hit. I out to you to call a copy of the governor's presentation from yesterday, My Safe Start. This is the plan to reopen Michigan's economy. I'm diving into it myself, but a couple of things that I think are most noteworthy. It's going to happen by geography and by industry. So you'll note when you look at it, we, Shiawassee County, are actually in the Lansing region for the purposes of this plan. So as many of you know, we've had different regional designations. For this one, we are in Lansing, and truth be told, I'm actually thinking that might help us a little bit, if only because, the Lansing region has probably not been as hard hit by the crisis as the core Detroit region. So that might mean Shiawassee County businesses may have the opportunity to open up a little bit quicker. So that's to be determined, but that's how I read that. And then industry types opening up. So we've heard some rumors that construction is going to start ramping up hopefully as soon as next week. I did hear an article or read an article that the big three are targeting, I believe, May 18th now for starting production back up. So it sounds like industry will be coming soon after construction. And then obviously after that, other things rolling out. Nothing definitive yet in terms of specific dates. That is a concern that I've heard from a few folks. It's good to see there's a plan, but there needs to be dates so companies can plan. But other than that, it looks like there's some progress in the right direction in that regard. And I think part of the success here, there is a business group that is involved. It's called the Economic Recovery Council, and you'll see the contacts on there. But they're working in partnership with healthcare providers, education providers. It looks like a very good group that has been working on this. So take a moment, read the plan. I will see if we can get a speaker on that plan, maybe as soon as this week, to jump on a call and be able to give you more information on that. So that's obviously good news, though. We're finally starting to see some concrete information from the state on a plan to move forward with reopening. So that's positive. A couple other things. I will send this out later today. We did have Jake Schrader from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation export team on our call a couple weeks ago, talking about resources to help Michigan companies grow international sales. They are doing another webinar on that later this week, I believe on Thursday. So I'm going to send some information out to you for that. Couple of other items. We will be having a call, and I just got a note from my friend Tyler at Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We're going to be having a call, it looks like, on Friday morning for any Shiawassee County businesses that can supply personal protective equipment for not only Shiawassee businesses, other businesses, but also other folks throughout the state. So the call will be to talk with our friends at the MEDC's Pure Michigan Business Connect program to get your business in that database so that not only Shiawassee County companies can access that for possible supply of things like masks and gowns and face shields and whatnot, but also if you want to have the opportunity to be able to sell to a broader audience too. So I'm going to be sending out information to those we've talked with to join a call. It looks like it's going to be on Friday morning. I'm also for the governmental and community folks on the call. I got some information yesterday from USDA Rural Development. They are rolling out a new round of community facilities grants. I won't go into all the details right now, but things that communities need, governments need, government buildings, police cars, things like that. So any of my public sector folks on the call, look for an email on that. I'll be sharing that shortly. One other thing I want to mention too real quick, we'll send out some information. USDA has also created a program to buy food products and be able to distribute that to people in need. So as you probably read, our food supply chain in this country is hurting. Meat, dairy, produce, because of things like restaurants being shut down, schools being shut down. You're probably hearing about milk having to be done. So the USDA has a buying program for that they've instituted. So Shiawassee County is a big ag community, a lot of producers here. So I want to be able to share that information with you, possibly being able to sell your products through that USDA program. Last two things. Tomorrow we will have Cheryl Peterson, our Small Business Development Center consultant, on the call. She will be talking about what SBDC is working on right now. As we discussed, they've done incredible work partnering with many local businesses to help through the funding programs and other tools. She's going to give an update on what they're working on. We're also going to have Catherine Burkholder from Consumers Energy on later in the week to give an update on what Consumers is working on. We may have another speaker as well. So it should be a busy rest of the week. And then finally, as always, if any folks are looking to hire, please let us know. We'll be happy to promote those jobs. So any questions, comments, either on Nancy's portion or anything I just mentioned? If you have something, hit *6. Any last comments or questions? Okay, well, everybody, thank you for jumping on today. As always, if anything comes up, give us a call or shoot us an email. Thanks.